Hi and welcome to Starto, the show for the American entrepreneur. I'm Chris Franks. Joining me again as always, the lovely, the talented, the beautiful, the bedazzled shoe as we were just talking about. The bedazzled shoes, Miss Sandy Grayson. Sandy, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. Show us your shoes for the day.
These are my favorite boots. I think they're from Rag & Bone. I call them my rain boots because they you could go anywhere in these things. They got treads.
Yeah.
They're kind of fancy rain boots.
They are. They're something.
If I was a cross-dresser or a woman, I would.
You would like those?
I'm not a cross-dresser or a woman, but I'm just saying I like
You
those.
would do that?
I would wear those.
That's
actually.
good. That's good to
I don't
hear.
say that about all high heels, I see, but those in particular.
Well, we've got an amazing guest. Welcome, Mr. Terrence Roberts, founder of the Prodigal Son Project here in Denver.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Shoe lover.
Shoe lover.
Yes.
Dude,
let's look at
here's the
let's
thing,
look at
like,
Terrence
I don't
shoes.
know that typically I'm always kind of...
I'll put them in this
Yeah,
thing
sure.
right here. All right.
Typically,
These are the gorilla chucks.
During the show, I kind of make fun of her shoes a little bit but I really can't.
Not today, you can't.
Yeah, man, I am totally.
Because I would have to
out-shoed.
defend her
Dude, you're
today.
slacking.
I'm
You're
totally
slacking.
out-shoed. I gotta go. I gotta pick up my game, just like we did last week. I gotta pick up my game in the style front.
Dude,
Before we get started, big shout out to our friends at Axles.
yes.
Axles, I'm
Look at
wearing
my
my
cute
very
little shirt.
favorite hat in the world. You just got your
I
own
just got a
Axles hat.
brand new flat bill. You know, I'm a flat bill guy.
I know, I can't pull it off. I
Yeah,
tried.
so-
I asked my wife.
We
I
could if
pull
you
it.
wanted to, though.
She goes, listen, you're just a little too old and a little too bald to pull that off. So I'm like, all right. But I could still kind of do the curvy bill thing, I think.
It looks good.
No, I think. So
And I like
thanks
my
to
shirt
Axles.
with the mountains and the
Very,
Colorado.
very cool. Thanks to Axles. You can
Thanks.
find them at cohats.com or Axles, AKSELS.com. And thank you guys from Axles for providing our stuff. Got a really cool show to talk about today. And we talked a lot about this, or a little bit about this just before we started the show. But we at Starto, we're focused primarily on entrepreneurship. We're focused on startups. And we're focused on kind of the universal truths of starting something, whether it be a company. And we tend to focus on companies because, you know, that's what I do primarily, and it's what we talk about. But there's a lot of things in common for anybody that wants to start stuff, particularly this big topic of something called, oh, I forgot to move the slide on. There you are.
Look.
The Prodigal Son Initiative. Very nice.
Why don't we start? Can I interrupt you? I'm going to take over.
Well, in just a second.
Let's talk about what he does.
Well, yeah, we'll get there.
Okay.
Have patience.
I like to introduce the guest and tell everybody how awesome he is.
So we want to talk today about social entrepreneurship, and it's a big topic, and we're going to dive into it. But, stealing segue.
Sorry.
Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about the Prodigal Son Initiative, a little bit about what you do, and primarily about your background, because, I mean, you have one of the most amazing stories that I've heard in a long time.
I call it crazy story.
All right.
So the Prodigal Son Initiative, it's a 501c3, it's a nonprofit. I've been doing it for 8 years. It's been incorporated since 2005. So we started in 2004, but the old application, you had to wait about a year, then it's retroactive. So 8 years. Our main mission is youth violence prevention. Denver's a great city, great economy here. You know, we've seen worse, but we do have our fair share of youth violence here, poverty issues, drug issues, especially in Northeast Park Hill, Northeast Denver in general. We take our kids hiking, rafting, rock wall climbing. We run a community center with Senator Mike Johnston on 33rd and Hudson, the Park Hill Community Center. So Senator Johnston has half, we have half. But then we also have it it's for more of a community gathering space if people need it. And we just kind of use it for our office space. And if people need somewhere safe to come or somewhere to just come hang out or get on the computer, get on, some Wi-Fi, they could just come in and just get on a computer. We give them coffee or whatever. Just something for the community over there in the Holly Shopping Center. We just got recently involved in something called interim use development. So what we do with interim use development, let's say if we're in the south side of Chicago or like in Watts in Los Angeles or any rundown type of community where there's violence, there's drugs or gangs, a lot of times you start seeing those type of activities when there's a lack of development, when things are run down, urban decay issues. Urban decay is a huge thing. This is the United States of America. A lot of these areas where we have a lot of violence and a lot of murders, there's urban decay issues. You don't have the same kind of violence you have in Cherry Creek that you have in
Causation,
Watts.
correlation? I mean, is it just, is it a cause of violence? Is it a cause?
I mean, their studies have been done in a lot of more inner city communities, even like lead-based paint in some of these houses, it really messes with the
Really?
development of children's brains.
Wow.
Their frontal lobe, and makes people more violent. That's why in some areas, people literally, their brains aren't as developed in certain ways and in certain areas because of lead-based paint, which they use in more project houses, older homes that are 200 years old or 150 years old, or these big project buildings that they have to hurry up and put together real fast and real cheaply because of a large influx of people that uses lead-based paint. Now you can't have lead-based paint. You can't sell a home with lead-based paint in it. You know what I mean? Because of what it does literally to the development of a child's brain, and it could make people more violent. Just seeing violent acts makes people have PTSD. That's why, you know, if you go to some people in New York City, literally do act different from people in Denver. It's a rougher city. It's a more it's a faster city, hustle and bustle. You know, and you know I go to Chicago and people move a lot faster. People seem a little bit angrier, but it's a bigger city. It's more people. Versus I'm here in Colorado, we do have more space, so we don't have as much violence. So yeah, I mean, you know, when you're in a war zone, then people treat it as such.
Well, I know you focus in the Prodigal Son Initiative. You focus on really trying to keep youth and young people away from gang violence. Talk a little bit about your story and what drove you to create the Prodigal Son Project.
So I grew up here in Northeast Denver, born and raised.
I thought I heard a Southern accent. No?
Yeah, well, I just talk funny a little bit.
I'm from Alabama.
Yeah,
so I thought maybe it was.
But I would go to Arkansas for summers. My family's from down south, but I was raised here in Denver. We would go down there and I ride the hogs and ride the horses and all of these different things. Or we go to Little Rock. You know, it's a city there too. But I would go there for summers. My father lived in Oakland, California, so I moved around a lot. But I'm from Denver. I love my city. I was an honor roll student. I loved going to school. All the party invitations were at school. The pretty girls, just whatever. Everything was at school. So I love school. And if I was going to be at school, I was going to do my work. You know, honor roll student. I was on the honor roll pretty much all throughout my elementary school, my middle school years. But around that time in the mid 80s, that's when we started getting crack cocaine, an influx of Bloods, Crips, just different types of things. Denver was a growing city. We didn't want to be this cow town anymore, and a lot of people from my community wanted to emulate what was going on in Los Angeles or Chicago or Miami or New Orleans, some of these cities that were considered bigger cities or more progressive cities, and we didn't want to, you know, feel like we weren't, you know, as progressive or as tough or we weren't as cool, you know. BET and all these different rap stars were coming up, and all these guys have all this money, and then we're sitting in Denver, Colorado. Nobody knew about us, and a lot of our parents started using drugs, and a lot of gangster violence started coming, and it was just kind of like a natural progression for like a lot of us young men in that area to really just join the Bloods. It was kind of like a fraternity. It was kind of like joining the football team. It was literally like 1 year, man, probably maybe even 200 of us young men. And some of the girls just, it was kind of like a movement, you know, to where it was like, well, this is what we are. You know, we don't like those guys from that community. They're this and we're not that, you know. And so pretty much all of the older African-American men and women that I seen that looked like me, that listened to my music, you know, we weren't having pastors come around or like police officers. Back then, it was these guys who were hustlers, they were killers, they were killing people, you know, they were robbing people. And these are the people who, when I got out of school, I had to see these people every day. But since I was from the community, they weren't mean to me. They treated me great. You know, they had a kind heart to us. They talked nice to us. They treated us with respect, and we wanted to emulate these guys. We wanted to help them out when other people from other communities came and beat them up or gunned them down. And it was almost like a natural progression for all of us, like I said earlier, for us to just become Bloods. But of course, becoming a Blood meant we were using drugs and we were carrying guns. And you know, next thing you know, I'm not going to school. The homies are over here. What do you mean you're going to school? We got to be here at 2 o'clock, you know. So next thing you know, I went from being on the honor roll literally in one semester, all Fs. I just dropped out of school.
How old are you then?
I'm 36.
No, how old were you
when
you dropped out?
When I dropped out, I was 15, but then I got gunned down in the summer of violence. I was shot in my back. I was partially paralyzed. Had to have a couple of surgeries. I was really injured, and I was still a juvenile. So when I went to move with my grandmother, I ended up going back to school, and that didn't last very long because by this time I was really full-fledged into the gang life. I had been gunned down already, a pretty traumatic gunshot actually. And you know, the trauma, you know, I had a couple stripes, guys really respected me by this time, and I had no time for school.
So getting gunned down is not what got you out of the gang?
Actually, no. I ended up going to prison after that, did some time in jail, started selling drugs, made a lot of money doing it. I was good at it, you know. I knew the people from over there, you know, and just kept going in this cycle, getting out of prison, paroling to my grandmother's house. You know, by this time I'm a grown man. I'm 23 years old. I'm paroled. I'm living with my grandmother. Now I'm back in jail, you know, and I just got tired of it, you know. And while I was sitting in jail, I just really wanted to do something better for my community, because I knew that a lot of kids I was on the honor roll. I got straight A's, maybe 1B. But a lot of kids, even the best kids who had middle class families, were just joining these street gangs because really there were no other people who looked like us who were over there saying, let's go, you know, play basketball, or let's do this, unless you had money to go to the rec center. But that's like $150 to sign up. Then you got to buy the shoes that match the uniform. Everybody has to have the same shoes. Then all of these different things. And man, some of those kids' parents were now gang members, or on crack, or on cocaine, or they were being raised by their grandmothers and kinship care that are on fixed incomes and those different things. So, you know, when we got kicked out of the gym, I knew these kids didn't have anywhere to go, just like I didn't have anywhere to go. And I just wanted to do something just initially to start off where kids could have a safe place to come and have somebody who looks like them, who was from the community, and we could play checkers, play chess. And I started it just like that. We were just playing chess, playing checkers, tic-tac-toe, but then we started taking kids on field trips. And I started getting more kids, because of course it's not just a few kids who needed this, it was a lot of kids who needed this type of support, who didn't want to become gang members, but they hadn't seen anything else, because gang members aren't always selling crack and having fights and angry. They have barbecues, there's pretty girls, there's some of those guys are nice guys, they're not all mean guys, you know what I mean?
It's like being part of a family.
They dress alike, they call each other, how are you doing today, happy birthday, you know, things that my friends still don't do for me literally to this day, you know. And that's what has people joining, that's what keeps people though, because there is this sense of love, but then the violence and the incarceration and the pain that comes with it is really not worth it.
So we talk in the startup community a lot, and we need to get to some of the stories here that we want to cover today, but we talk in the startup community about seeing a problem in the world and wanting to fix it. Mm-hmm. Was that truly what happened to you? You're in jail and you saw the problem, became very clear,
yep,
and
absolutely
decided that you were going to fix it?
You know, initially, man, I was the guy who was like, you know, this is what we are, and you know, I was one of the main agitators, like, you know, I'm gonna be a blood for life, and this is Park Hill, and this is our community, and nobody cares about us, and you know, blood started in Vietnam, and you know, we got to do it like this, and this is what it's about. It's about togetherness and all that stuff. But really, man, we were fighting each other. You know, sometimes we were fighting people who we grew up with, you know, who became Crips, you know, and in Denver, Colorado, on the northeast side, the Crips are literally right across Colorado Boulevard, and just east of Colorado Boulevard is Bloods, like literally like 20 feet. Mm-hmm. If you live 20 feet from one side, you're going to be a Crip or a Blood, pretty much. And we're fighting kids who were our very best friends. You know, people were getting killed, people who grew up together, you know, getting put in wheelchairs. And I knew it wasn't about anything, but then there were other intelligent guys, rough guys, scary guys who were grabbing these kids. Guys who I knew, a lot of them, you know, just some piece of crap people, man. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. And they know how I feel. I see them every day, you know, who were murdering people, but were recruiting 12-year-old little boys because they didn't have anywhere to go, you know, and they were nice to these guys. But next thing you know, they're putting a pistol in their hand, or we'll sell this crack, you know, because no one cares about you. They won't give you a job, so here, sell this. This is what we have to do. And I know that that's not true. You know, so I really wanted to just come and counteract that. So I went to school and figured out I want to do more of a nonprofit. I just really wanted to make sure I could take care of myself, take care of my family. Really, to me, wasn't about making a lot of money. I just wanted to be able to take care of myself. I have to live. And I wanted to help my community out, and I really wanted to be somewhere for those kids, somebody who, I'm not afraid of gang members. I'm not the toughest guy, but I know these guys, and I know how to communicate with them. And I knew that those kids needed somebody like me over there, or all of those kids would have became gang members or sympathizers of. You know?
It's an unbelievable story, and I encourage everybody to kind of look into it more. Just before we transition, where can people find out more about the Prodigal Son Initiative and your story? Yeah,
they can go to our website, www.prodigalsoninc.org. They can just Google Prodigal Son or Google my name, Terrence Roberts, and our website will come up.
Very cool.
Just to make it simple.
So we're going to, tough to follow that story because it's an unbelievable story, but we want to talk a little bit today about social entrepreneurship. And social entrepreneurship, one of the biggest challenges is defining what social entrepreneurship is, right?
Right, yeah. I was actually looking up, okay, what is the definition? Because what you do is considered a nonprofit, right? But I feel that there's so much conversation around social entrepreneurship. So I found this article is on the PBS site, actually. And I love what they say about social entrepreneurs, that they are the people that act as the change agents for society. And they said the job of a social entrepreneur is to recognize when a part of society is stuck and to provide new ways to get it unstuck, which sounds so much like what you're doing. So I was looking for, so what's the difference? And it seems that social entrepreneurs are more concerned with social value versus just making a profit. Whereas, you know, unlike nonprofits, but social enterprises do have to make a profit. And does that sound like the right distinction to you?
I mean, I'll say it like this. If you're losing money every year with your nonprofit, the IRS will shut you down.
Okay.
I mean, so even though it's nonprofit, it's still a business model, and entrepreneurship means that, you know, you're a business person.
That's something that most people don't get.
Yeah.
I mean, right off the bat,
they'll shut you down. They'll
as
take your designation.
As a nonprofit, you still have to show some sort of
because you have to have you have to have a level of pretty much social acceptance in your community and around your work. And if they're not, you know, accepting of your work, and it'll show by your donations, it'll show by your longevity, it'll show by pretty much, if people aren't supporting your work, then they're not going to have you. Because technically, I don't want to speak for the IRS, I don't think they like nonprofits that much, because
it's really hard to get a nonprofit classification.
I mean, you know, our government is pretty much, it's funded by tax dollars, you know, and you know, if you got a million nonprofits, if everybody has a 501c3 and people are dumping their money into these 501c3s and the government can't tax that income, then, you know, the government can lose a substantial amount of income, you know. So, you know, every nonprofit that they choose to let be a nonprofit that's incorporated, that's potential income. What if in my nonprofit I get a billionaire who gives me billions of dollars that could have been taxable income? I don't. I wish I could one day.
Well, it's double-sided, because if he makes a bunch of money that year, he gives a bunch of money to your nonprofit, that's tax deductible on his side.
Exactly.
And that's, so they're double losing.
And that's money that the government doesn't get, though. And the money that the government probably needs right now, of course. You know, so it is a business. You know, it's not profit, but it's a business. I draw a salary off of this income. This is my full-time job, because the level of our activity, I have to work full-time. We have a staff, you know, so we have grant writers, you know. I raise money to do interim youth development projects. I'm paying contractors. I mean, we're talking about, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. You know, my budget every year is $300,000. It's not a big budget. Some people it's $2 million. Some people it's $150,000. But that's $300,000.
How many people do you have working with you?
It's 3 of us.
3 of you. Wow, that's
great.
Well,
it's myself and 3. We have 2 staff, 2 outreach staff, and then also a grant writer who does our grant writing.
Do you resonate with this? I love this quote. It's from a book called How to Change the World. Social entrepreneurs identify resources where people only see problems. They view the villagers as the solution, not the passive beneficiary. And they begin with the assumption of competence and unleash resources in the communities they're serving.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that kind of speaks to our work. Like, where we are is kind of like a village. If people don't know you over there, people may not speak to you. People have been robbed over there. People have gotten killed even over there, you know, who people felt like shouldn't be over there because of gang issues or other things, or they're from different communities. But yeah, you know, the people are my resources, because it's really only a staff of 4 of us, you know. So if the people in that community weren't assets, you know, volunteer power, that's manpower. Like,
and you're
we document our volunteer.
The village to get involved.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
Get these kids.
So we were talking about public art earlier. Denver's really becoming a huge hub for public art, like nice murals, not just graffiti, but we're talking about, you know, murals that beautify area, that bring color to an area. Like, if you notice, like, you know, we're Prodigal Son, we wear camouflage, just so the kids don't have to wear red or blue gang colors, but we wear orange. We're really having the kids wear bright green, wear orange, wear yellow, just to really be more bright, be more artistic, be more colorful, be more expressive, because, you know, when areas are just gray and drab, you know, it brings more violence, you know.
That's
so
a great shirt too.
Oh, thank you very much. You know, so yeah, that's what we really want to do. We have people paint murals in the community, but all of that volunteer power, that's pretty much an equivalency of a form of income for us, because we can't do the work that we do unless we had literally 50 volunteers to help us do the work.
Do you consider yourself a social entrepreneur?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, being an entrepreneur immediately indicates the fact that you're starting something and it's not just going to die. It's like you're trying to start something that's sustainable in your own.
And like I said earlier, you know, I run a nonprofit, but it's a business. You know, it is a business. I have an accountant.
Like
I should have counted him as part of our staff, because I pay him. He makes pretty much what I make almost.
Well, one of my favorite definitions of entrepreneurs came from David Cohen at Techstars. He said entrepreneurs tend to do shit.
Yeah.
Versus just talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. You are making a difference in a lot of people's lives.
I was going to start a coffee shop. Actually, that's what I want to do. I want to start a coffee shop. I was going to sell Chuck Taylors, have a stage where people could come do their poetry and perform, and I was just going to be behind the counter making coffees, lattes. I want to do foreign teas and all these different things. But I would have been considered an entrepreneur for sure, because it's considered for profit if I would have did that. But since I started a nonprofit, you don't always hear, you know, entrepreneur attached to people who run nonprofits, when really I'm probably working hard and I have to have more of a business mind running a nonprofit versus if I had a coffee shop.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know,
coffee shop's a pretty simple business.
Exactly, man. But you know, when you run a nonprofit, you're dealing with, you know, with people's
complex, man.
Untaxable, you know,
complex.
You're dealing with people's income. You're dealing with people's kindness. You know, we write grants. I get government contracts.
That's not easy.
I get federal contracts. They're not playing around. You know, I can go to jail. You know, people. You know, a lot of people start nonprofits and get themselves into a lot of trouble. I got a lot of homework. So when I do speaking engagements to kids, I'm like, you know, who wants to be their own boss one day? And everybody's like, me. You know, like, who loves homework? And they're like, nobody.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm like, if I don't do my homework, I'm in a lot of trouble.
Right.
I'm gonna read about it. You know, because they'll come in there. You know, so it's definitely a business.
Gotcha.
It's definitely.
That's awesome.
Pretty unbelievable story. I want to talk a little bit about this story. I found this in Good. It's a website, good.is. And it was talking about sort of this concept that was formed in Oakland in the 60s around the Black Panthers and community organizing. And what they're organizing around today is not so much causes, but they're really rallying around this concept of food. Because the term, and I think Park Hill and this kind of community that we're in now has been termed as a food desert, which is not a lot of access to local, healthy, organic food, particularly if you don't have regular transportation. It's really hard to get that sort of stuff. So, question for both of you guys, as a social entrepreneur, as somebody thinking as a social entrepreneur, is food and access to food a problem that is an entrepreneurship problem? Is it something that we as an entrepreneurship community, as a startup people, need to address?
I think so. For the simple fact of one of the ladies who's actually doing a lot of the work in Oakland, her name is Ashar Ekudayo. She actually just left Denver a couple of years ago to go to Oakland and help Van Jones and some of those guys with that green for all and all those different things. So, and she really got her start with organizing here in Northeast Denver, and she's in Oakland right now. She may be even in this article, but absolutely, because of kids, one of the main programs of the Black Panther Party was just a free breakfast program for kids. People don't talk about that. They talk about how they like this Black radical group, or they show them with the black and the guns, but really they started off, they were giving kids free breakfast. That's really what they were doing before school, because if those kids couldn't eat before they got to school, then those kids were more disruptive. It was harder for kids to learn. We're talking about 8, 9-year-old kids. You know, it's hard for me to learn and not be disruptive. I'm 36 if I haven't eaten breakfast.
Exactly. I'm disruptive when I've had breakfast. But if I have breakfast,
I'm not as disruptive.
Yeah.
I thought this article is really interesting. It's called Real Food Justice: From Black Panther Party Roots to Hip Hop Activism, Foodies with Fists. And it talked about they were taking juice, like green juice, and going out and handing it out.
Having
to the
these conversations with people, and people would drink it and say, "It doesn't taste good. There's not any sugar in this."
Right.
And they had to say, "Well, like, listen, juice isn't supposed to have sugar."
And they would have this conversation, about what's healthy. And I would imagine that's a really interesting conversation, because, like you said, some people, if your biggest problem is, gang related, or maybe your parents are doing drugs and you're not sure where you're going to sleep, or if your home is safe, getting a green juice might not be your highest priority. So I think that's
but it can all help out,
big.
because so at our community center office that we have a community garden there. that a lot of the food justice advocates, they came, they installed it. We grow tomatoes, we grow fresh greens. We have people who live across the street, live in the community. Some of the guys who take care of this garden are even drug addicted people, and they water the garden, they nurture it. You know, I come to the office, it'll be 7 o'clock in the morning. They'll be out there watering the garden, and they can take the fruit off of it. They all respect this garden, you know, but they can get fresh fruit there because it is important. Because, like, let's say in Park Hill where we're at, unless you go to Colfax or to Quebec, and it's about maybe 1.5 miles to 2 miles from each direction, that's the closest grocery stores that we have over there. Or Stapleton, maybe like the Walmart or the Sam's Club over there, but that's pretty far if you don't have a car.
And what do you think this does, having that garden right there for people? Why do you think it's so
it gives them, not only does it provide, this doesn't provide a lot of healthy food, of course, I mean, but it gives them something to do, man. It beautifies our community. Our community isn't just some concrete jungle. I'm from the concrete jungle.
Right.
No, there's tomatoes there.
There's connection,
exactly,
maybe, just to each other and the earth.
And it's very liberating to be able to work in the garden instead of, you know, just looking at a busted up basketball court or a burnt down building. You know, we rather have gardens in our community than have broken up buildings, and that's the direction that is going. Because let's say back in the day, you would think of a food justice advocate as, you know, just some gardener or somebody who's not from the inner city, and they weren't, you know. But now you're seeing a lot of different kinds of activism are coming together and morphing. You know, hip hop was different from food justice, advocacy, but now we're talking about, we're almost 2013, so a lot of people who grew up in the inner city, grew up around gangs or violence or food deserts, are saying, you know, I want to do something to help my community, but I'm not an ex-gang member, you know, and not everybody has my story. Some of these guys want to do gardening, but yet we all grew up together.
Well, it's interesting because in the tech world, we call that confluence. So when you have a lot of factors that are coming together, it creates opportunities.
Exactly.
It creates a need and market.
Exactly.
Sandy, talk to us about common social mistakes.
Oh, so I found this article in the Startup Garage, Common Mistakes Social Entrepreneurs Make. I'm curious if you've experienced any of this. I thought this was really interesting. These are just a couple from the article. Asking for help and feedback. They said social entrepreneurs, perhaps even more than traditional entrepreneurs, believe that they have found the solution to a problem that no one has yet come up with, and this sometimes can lead to this strong belief in their correctness, you know, that they're right and everybody else is wrong, which can lead to blindness on the entrepreneur's part. And they said, you know, you have to be really open to feedback from other people, even though you know that you're doing something really good. Did you come up against any struggles like that when you're starting
I've been accused of having what they call is founders syndrome.
Right.
Yeah, so
I've heard that.
Which is huge. Is kind of my previous world in nonprofits. Might even be bigger in nonprofits than it is for for-profits. But for-profits, it's big problem.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, I'll say
Founders
this though.
syndrome.
I've seen nonprofits and even some for-profits have to close their doors because they wouldn't listen to other people and let other people help them and let other people have some leadership and some ownership. Because if you want to do it all yourself, it's like, okay, I'll help you today, but that's your thing. I got some other things I need to do. So, and we've all had to learn it. And there's been times where I knew I was right, and people are like, no, you have founder syndrome. And I'm like, no, this is what I do, you know? But that's why, you know, if you don't have a board of directors, you don't have an organization.
Right.
So if my board of directors all quit on me, they would take my nonprofit designation, because you have to have governance. What governance means is it's not just about you, Mr. President, or whoever you are. No, you have a Congress that you need to answer to. I can't just get $10,000 and just go spend it how I want to. I get a salary. That's my money. The other money, that belongs to the organization. It's not my money. But without that governance, without people saying, Terrence, maybe we should take it this direction. Maybe we should do it like this. If I didn't have that, I'm telling you, I would have had to close my doors probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Wow.
Is the lesson there get help?
Sometimes it's a painful lesson where people are like, dude, you look really stupid in front of like 5,000 people right now. Do not look over there. They're all staring at you right now. But you know what? I'm here right now, even with you guys. You know what I mean? You know, because it gave us longevity, and we can all continue to learn. Like, I founded Prodigal Son, but there are so many people who helped me that know so much more about business, about nonprofits, about raising money, and there's times where this is my organization. I have to just shut up and listen, you know, and let the experts tell me, I mean, I'm an expert in my own right, but there are people who've been doing this, 20, 30 years, and they know a lot more than me, and they've helped me. I mean, I'm a man who joined the gang. I'm a felon. I'm an ex-gang member, and I'm running a business where people with their doctor's degrees have had to close their doors in this recession, and we're here and we're growing actually.
That's awesome.
There's an article that was in Fast Company recently, and it was about 6 things Silicon Valley can teach social entrepreneurs. And first of all, Silicon Valley tends to think that they have all the answers, and I don't think they always do. But I'm going to read them to you, and then we can kind of discuss a couple individually. Take risks. Collaboration is key. I think we just talked about that. Listen to others. We talked about that. Balance is essential. Get your tribe to evangelize for you, and marketing is storytelling. I want to talk about the last one first. Marketing is storytelling. One of the things that people don't think about as social entrepreneurs, whether it be for more of a high impact company or a nonprofit, is just because you do great work doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. You still have to go out and tell that story. You have to find people that will fund it. You have to find people that will accept your services, right?
Well, so there's kind of like this thing for social entrepreneurs, and I'll say, and I know a lot of people watching and listening, they can understand this. It's kind of like, if you are social entrepreneurs, kind of like, are you doing it for media attention, or do you need media attention? And there's kind of like this thing where it's like, we don't care about media. I'm doing it for the people.
Yeah.
But I will take that 9 News article, or just I will go to ICOSA and get on that radio, that TV show if they let me, So, but I did have to learn, and I was kind of one of those guys like, I don't need that article. I'm not doing it for that reason.
Yeah, because I'm just about the people.
I'm just about the people.
Yeah.
Then somebody else is like, I'll do it.
Right.
Then I'm watching, Fox 31 or some other TV station. I'm like, that's her right there, And it's just like, man, that's attention that we need to, or we're not going to survive. Like, do you know how much money Pepsi spends so they can get TV time? One thing that a lot of social entrepreneurs really miss out on is, man, I've been in the New York Times just recently. I've been on MSNBC, a lot of different media outlets to really let people know that we're doing good work. I didn't have to pay not even 1 penny for any of the media attention I've ever got, because that is one of the perks of entrepreneurship, but we're doing the work that we tell people we're going to do as well. That's why we get one of those perks. But, for anybody who thinks that, media attention is not important, media pretty much, some people would argue that Barack Obama's the president because of media. Some people would, some people do.
We're getting low on time, but I would love to hear from you for the people out there that want to make a difference in the world. What's been your biggest lesson that you could share, that if you were just starting out tomorrow, that you would tell somebody right now?
You know what? Actually, what we talked about earlier, that running a nonprofit, even though it's about helping people, and that's really where our mind states really are at, but it is a business. You have to dot your I's and cross your T's, and you have to treat it as such, because it is a business. It's just a different business model, and it took us some hard lessons to really learn that. You got to have your invoicing. You got to contact people. You got to have good business practices. Collaboration. You can't collaborate with someone who's always angry. How can you be a social entrepreneur if you can't communicate with people? Communication. If you have a for-profit business and you're not treating your customers very well, then no one's going to come in there. And that's how you talk to people. That's how you treat people. So it is a business, and I think that that's the biggest lesson that social entrepreneurs need to understand. Unless you just want to go volunteer somewhere.
Right.
But even when you volunteer somewhere, you need to respect their business, because trust me, it is a business, and somebody has paperwork to do, and they have people to answer to.
Terrence,
that's great.
Unbelievably cool conversation. I feel like we could go on talking for probably 16 hours.
Yeah, and
Maybe
make
18.
sure, you just told me about this huge project that you guys just raised, like $7 million.
Yeah, so do I have time to talk about
Yes,
it?
of course, absolutely.
So we had a huge gang-related arson in the Holly Shopping Center, about a mile from here, 33rd and Hudson, 33rd and Holly. 8 gang members arsoned the whole shopping complex. One of the young ladies was actually murdered because of this not too long ago. And we got it cleaned up. The Urban Land Conservancy came and they purchased it. The Denver Foundation got involved, the City of Denver, Parks and Recs, and we raised $250,000 to put some basketball courts there. We put a soccer court there because we have a huge influx of Latino families that are moving to the area. So we have the only inner city soccer field in Denver, brand new. We have 2 playgrounds over there, 2 family areas, 2 basketball courts, a Denver Nuggets home court, gazebos. We have a huge peace mural that sits underground. We brought a lot of color to the area. And, you know, in seeing that project and seeing the advocacy, Philip Anschutz and the Anschutz Foundation donated $5 million to the area to build a brand new Nancy P. Anschutz Center. He's naming it after his wife. So the Boys and Girls Clubs is going to move their office into this new community center, and we're going to move our offices over there. We're going to have 400 kids in that community center every single day.
That's
Congratulations.
well, we
if
wish
people
you
want to donate, they want to get involved, it's Prodigal Son.
Prodigal Son Initiative. Like I said, www.prodigalsoninc.org.
We'll make sure
or like I
there's a
said, they
link.
just Google Prodigal Son. It will
It'll come up.
Yeah, it's pretty big. But for that area, $7 million so far has been invested in that area from this arson, from just advocating and just cleaning up the weeds and showing people this is just not a gang war zone. No, we care about this area. These guys are gang banging, but all of us 8,000 people aren't.
That's amazing.
Inspiring.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks
Taking it
so
national,
much.
it's a national thing. It's a movement.
Thank you
Great.
for your good work, and thank you for spending just a little bit of time.
Thank you
here with
guys
us
for even
today.
thinking about us.
All right, we appreciate it.
All right.
That's all the time we have. Join us again next week for another episode of Starto, the show for the American entrepreneur.
If you're listening to us on iTunes, make sure you go check out the blog post, which will have all the links at icosa.co. And follow us on Twitter.